What a dipstick. Welcome back. Thanks for coming along. In this video, we're going to be clearancing the seals and the rotors and then assembling the rotors ready to build the engine. Cheers. This is the rear rotor. You have to keep, being as my whole rotating assembly has been balanced, this has to be the rear rotor now. You can't mix them up once it's been balanced. So this one's, anyway, the rear, as you can see, it's got a new bearing pressed in. And then all of this material has been removed to lighten the rotor. This has been done on both rotors. And then there's been some clearance in, so some material taken off the sides all the way around. And then extra tip clearance in. I think they call that race clearance in, but I can't really remember. I'm not sure if that's a lie or not. So all of the rotor's been lightened and then clearanced, extra tip clearance in. And then the balancing has been done afterwards, so that after it's all been clearanced and lightened, you can then see that it's got a little bit more taken out of here and here. And that's to balance the rotor and then obviously balance the whole rotating assembly. Once this work has been done, so these have been clearanced on a lathe, what you'll find is that all of these little grooves where your side seals sit and your corner seals will be slightly burred over. So when you come to fit, this is the side seal, it doesn't fit, but when you come to refit your side seal, you'll find it doesn't want to go down into one of these grooves. It will sort of get stuck. So you have to go through there with some sandpaper, fold it in half, push down into that groove, and then lose the will to live as you do this for the next year of your life in front of the telly at night. And you have to do that for all the side seal gaps on both rotors until you reach the point where these slide up and down nicely in there with the spring behind. To do I found that the corner seals wouldn't drop into their little holes either. So what I did was I just got a, not the Sharpie, but I just found a pen that just about fitted in there with a bit of clearance around it. And then wrapped some sandpaper around that. And then shoved that down into the hole and just worked it round until the corner seals would go in nicely. So that got those cleared out and the sides cleared out. And then what I've done is, the reason I got these arrows on here is to remind myself which way this rotates when it's put back into the engine. Because when you add your oil control rings, they have to go in a particular way so that they lock into place as the engine's running. Otherwise they'll just spin around and not give you a good seal. So that's the reason they're on there. And then I number these 1, 2, 3. And then obviously that's the gear side and that's the non-gear side. And the reason I do that is because I clearance all of the different seals to make sure that their clearances are exact, and then lay that all out on my bench before I'm going to before I rebuild the engine. Now what I'm on to is I'll just say that the clearance I'm using between the side seal and the corner seal is 0.15 millimeters. That sounds like a lot, but this is a full bridge engine and for high horsepower, high RPM, and with that comes high heat as well. And things move a lot, expand a lot in those sort of extreme applications. So I'm told that is the clearance I want. So that's the clearance I'm going for. For the apex seals, I have a front, this one's rear, so a front rotor, rear rotor. Then what I do is on the rotor housing, I take measurements all the way around the rotor housing to find the thinnest point. And then I have clearanced the apex seals. So this one is number 1. But what I've done is with the sandpaper, I've taken this down. You can see it's shiny on the end. Taken that down to be 0.15 mil smaller than the smallest measurement on the rotor housing. So that's clearance to the rotor housing. And then what I've done is gone through the apex seal gap with the file, working it away for hours and hours, for hours and hours, for hours and hours. To get the same clearance in the slot gap. One thing I will say about doing this is that if you work your file, in that way, what you'll find is that you end up taking more material from here and from here than you do out the middle there. So what I actually ended up doing was working the file like this to get more clearance in the middle, and then constantly checking it with a feeler gauge and getting the 0.15 mil over the whole thing. Sorry for being so boring, but that's the way it is. So I have come across a bit of a problem, as this side seal, which was supposed to be going here between numbers 1 and 2, has about 0.5 millimeter of clearance, which is too much. So it's a bit strange really, because as you can see from, if I could get it to focus, anyway, you can see there's no shiny bit on the end. So I haven't been messing around with this. It is the way it came out of the engine, but it's got far too much clearance. All the other ones are absolutely spot on. I've been moving them around in different places to get them perfect, and yeah, they're looking really good, really nice, all exactly where I want them to be. But yeah, unfortunately this one is off by a lot. These are the old apex seals. These are the ones that I'll just be shoving these into the rotor. I'll put them in the wrong way round, so that as the rotor goes in, the corner seals and the corner seal springs will stay in exactly the right place. And then I'll just pull them out, pop the new ones in, and everything's nicely in line. That's the plan anyway. But at the moment, I've got to sort out what's going on with this corner seal and see if I can find the right thing to make this work. I'm now just starting to clean up the rotors. That's the rear one. In my my little parts cleaner box here, I'm just going to use some petrol. I don't know if petrol's the right thing to use, but that's what I'm using. Obviously a toothbrush and a sort of a very soft brass brush, and get all the any of the old crap off, the carbon crap, and get them nice and clean and ready to be assembled. I'm now just assembling my rotors. So I've got everything laid out here. It's the front rotor and the rear rotor. I marked these rear and then laid everything out. This one is gear side, so this is the gear. And I'll just put my 2 of the corner seals in. Number 1, number 1, number 2, number 2. I'm just doing number 3. And I've just been adding new inserts, the new rubber inserts that go in there. So just pop that in. I've got an old apex seal in there, so it makes it easier to line these up. Pop the spring in, followed by corner seal itself. push it down. There we go. That one lined up. Then we go on to side seal springs. And when you put these in, what you want to do is try and make sure that the ends of the spring, there you go, the ends point up. That's the way they go in. So pop that one in there. That's in there. And then we go for the side seal. And carry on like that. Moving on to the oil control ring springs now. I'll just pop that first one in, but it's quite important that you get these in the right place. But on the end of here, there is a turned up, sort of squared off end. Focus. A turned up squared off end, and then this side is a turned up rounded end. The rounded end goes into the little indentation there in the rotor. The reason I got these arrows on here is because this is the way the rotor spins when it's in the engine. So the easiest way to work this out is that if you pop that in there, you imagine the rotor is rotating like this. So if this was held still, the rotor would be rotating and holding this still. So we can just simulate that by pushing it the opposite direction. And then this will go eventually. Oh, there we go. Happy days. Move on. And these are the oil control rings, which I'm just going to try and fit some new O-rings to. I don't know how well this is focusing here, but half of these, it goes sort of around the outside of the thing, and the other ones, it sits on the inside. So I'm just going to use a little bit of the old fake Vaseline. I'm going to just work this around, and it should just, there we go, pop in like that. One down. So now I've got the oil control rings, got the seals in them. There we go, that one's on the inner ones, and these are the outer ones. And there's the outer ones with the seal inside. And then what we've got on here, just there, is the indent for the sort of square upturned bit on the oil control ring, which is just there. So all we got to do is basically line these two bits up and pop this in. So that's oil control rings, outer and inner, both in. This is the rear rotor, gear side. So the gear faces the back of the engine, the rear of the engine. I did have all of these labelled up. So that's the front ones. The rear one, so gear side. And so I'm just going to stick all of these seals back in. And then I'll smear some Vaseline around here so they don't fall out, or hopefully they don't fall out. And then that'll be that side. And I'll flip it over, which is what I've just done here, so I've flipped this one over already. So I'll just stick these back in again and happy days. So there we go. That is the rotors assembled, front and rear. I'll just put a little smear of, well, quite a big smear of Vaseline on everything to hold all the seals in place. I try not to go overboard with the Vaseline, because apparently when it comes to first startup, if you use too much, it will foul your plugs, and then the engine won't start, and you have to change your plugs and all that kind of thing. So there we go. They're assembled. I've got my Apex Seal springs there from Rotary Aviation, who do the Super Seals. These are the race springs apparently. And then I've got my new Apex Seals for the front. And what a dipstick. They're right under my nose. There they are. Rear. So new Apex Seals, front and rear. New Apex Seal springs. Solid dowel pins. I've got my O-ring kit for the water seals, and then the dowel ring, O-rings, the O-rings that go on your through bolts. Although for this one I'm not using through bolts, I'm using the 10mm stud kit with the ARP nuts. And that, I believe, is pretty much it. Apart from that, I've got my Torrington bearings and seal, thermal spring, thermal pellet, things like that. It's the rear stationary gear, the oil pump, drive oil pump. So yeah, pretty much ready to go, I believe.